Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Daily English Talk. It's your host, Emily, and I'm so happy you're here with me today. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, because every episode is designed to help you learn English naturally, easily, and in a way that fits your real life. Today, we're going to dive into one of the most useful topics for everyday English, talking about your day using the past tense. And don't worry, by the end of this episode, you'll feel way more confident because we're going to practice together, slowly, naturally, and step by step. So relax, get comfortable, and let's get started. You know, one of the most common things that people do in real conversations, whether with friends, coworkers, teachers, or even strangers, is simply talk about what they did earlier. Maybe someone asks, "How was your day?" Or, "What did you do yesterday?" Or, "How was your weekend?" These questions sound simple, but for English learners, answering them smoothly can sometimes feel stressful. And that's totally normal. But the good news is that after this episode, you'll never panic again when someone asks you about your day, because you'll already have the vocabulary, the structure, and the confidence to respond naturally. And the best part is, you'll learn it through real examples, long explanations, storytelling, and gentle repetition. No pressure, just comfortable improvement. Let's imagine that I want to tell someone what I did yesterday. The past tense in English, specifically the simple past, is what we use for actions that started and finished in the past. For example, I woke up, I ate breakfast, I went to work, I watched a movie, and so on. These verbs are all in the past tense. Some are regular, like watched, cleaned, or played. Others are irregular, like went, ate, drank, or slept. You don't need to memorize all of them today. Instead, by hearing them in context many times, they'll start to feel natural to you. That's how language learning really works, through repetition that feels like real life, not boring memorization. So let's begin with something very simple, describing a morning routine in the past. I'll give you an example in slow, natural English. Listen carefully, and imagine yourself saying something similar when someone asks, "What did you do yesterday morning?" Here is a small sample. Yesterday, I woke up around 8. I got out of bed slowly because I felt a little tired. Then I went to the bathroom, washed my face, and brushed my teeth. After that, I made some coffee and prepared a quick breakfast. I ate toast with peanut butter and sliced bananas. While I was eating, I listened to a podcast to practice my English. Now, this short paragraph contains several verbs in the past tense. Woke up, got out, felt, went, washed, brushed, made, prepared, ate, listened. This is the most important thing. You can always describe your day by putting your actions in the simple past. And even if you don't remember every irregular verb right away, communication is still possible. If you say something like, "I do breakfast," instead of "I made breakfast," the other person will probably still understand you. But the more you practice, the more natural it becomes to use the correct forms. Now, let's go deeper. I want you to imagine not just telling the actions, but telling the story of your day in a more complete, descriptive way. English becomes much easier when you don't just list verbs, but when you connect the actions together. Explain how you felt, what you thought, why you did something, or what happened around you. This is how native speakers communicate every day. And I want you to feel confident doing it too. Let me paint a bigger picture. Imagine I'm sitting with a new friend and she asks, "So, what did you do yesterday?" Instead of answering with a short, incomplete sentence like, "I woke up, ate breakfast, went to work," I might describe it more smoothly. "Yesterday was pretty good. I woke up a little later than usual, around 8:30. because I stayed up the night before watching a movie. After I got up, I made coffee and enjoyed a slow, quiet breakfast. The weather outside looked really nice, sunny but not too hot, so I opened the window to let some fresh air in. After breakfast, I checked my emails and prepared for a meeting I had in the afternoon. Do you see the difference? It's not complicated, but the extra details make your story feel natural. They also give you more vocabulary to practice. And the more vocabulary you use, the more confident you become. Now, let's walk through an entire day together, hour by hour, moment by moment. And as we do it, I'll add more past tense verbs and natural expressions. Listen carefully and imagine this story as if it were your own. Then later, you can repeat a similar story about your real day. So, yesterday morning started like this. I woke up when my alarm rang, but honestly, I didn't get out of bed right away. I lay there for a few minutes, scrolling on my phone. I checked messages from friends, read a few short news headlines, and answered a couple of emails that didn't require long replies. After that, I finally sat up, stretched my arms, and felt my back crack a little. It wasn't painful, just satisfying. Then I went to the kitchen and made myself a cup of coffee. I usually drink my coffee with almond milk, but yesterday I didn't have any left, so I used regular milk instead. It tasted fine, just a little different. While I drank my coffee, I listened to some relaxing music. I lit a small candle on the table because I like the atmosphere it creates. Soft, cozy, calm. It helps me start the day in a peaceful mood. When I finished my coffee, I cooked a simple breakfast: eggs, toast, and a little avocado. While I ate, I wrote a few lines in my journal about what I wanted to do during the day. Journaling really helps me clear my mind. After breakfast, I cleaned the table, washed the dishes, and wiped the counter. I like keeping my kitchen tidy, especially in the morning. It makes me feel like I'm starting my day on the right foot. After cleaning, I got dressed and prepared to go outside. I checked the weather again, grabbed my bag, and left the apartment. As soon as I walked outside, I felt the fresh morning air. The street was already busy, people walking fast, cars passing by, a few bicycles rushing toward the city center. I walked to the bus stop and waited for about 5 minutes. While I waited, I watched the people around me. Some looked tired, some looked stressed, and some were smiling as they talked on the phone. It was interesting to imagine what their mornings were like. When the bus arrived, I got on and found a free seat near the window. I like sitting by the window because I can watch the city go by. During the ride, I listened to another English learning podcast. Because even as a host of this podcast, I still enjoy learning. I believe that learning never really ends. You can always improve, grow, and discover new things. And that's one reason I love doing daily English talk, helping people around the world feel more confident every day. The bus ride lasted around 15 minutes. When I got off, I walked to a small cafe where I had planned to meet a friend. The cafe looked cozy with wooden tables, warm lights, and soft music playing in the background. My friend was already there, sitting at a table near the window. She waved at me as soon as she saw me. I smiled, walked over, and sat down. We talked about our week, our plans, and some personal projects we were working on. She told me about a book she had finished reading, a mystery novel that she recommended. I told her about a new recipe I tried the day before, pasta with creamy mushroom sauce, and how surprisingly delicious it turned out. We laughed, shared stories, and simply enjoyed each other's company. At one point, she spilled a little coffee on the table, but we cleaned it up quickly and continued our conversation. When we finished our drinks, we walked outside and said goodbye. She went to her office, and I walked toward a park because I had some extra time before my meeting. The park looked beautiful, and the trees were full and green, the flowers were bright and colorful, and the air smelled fresh after a recent rain. I found an empty bench and sat down. For a moment, I just breathed deeply and relaxed. I watched a few children playing near a fountain, running around and laughing loudly. Their energy made me smile. While I sat in the park, I took out my notebook and reviewed some notes for the meeting I had scheduled. I wrote down a few new ideas and practiced how I wanted to present them. Preparation always helps me feel more confident, and I like taking my time to think things through. After about 20 minutes, I stood up and walked toward the building where my meeting was supposed to take place. The building was modern, with large glass windows that reflected the sky. Inside, the lobby smelled faintly of coffee, probably from a cafe on the first floor. I took the elevator to the third floor, found the meeting room, and waited for the others to arrive. The meeting lasted around an hour. We discussed updates, upcoming projects, and some challenges we were facing. I presented my ideas, and everyone seemed to like them. It felt good to contribute something valuable. When the meeting ended, I said goodbye to my colleagues, packed my things, and left the building feeling productive. After the meeting, I walked back toward the center of the city. I passed by several shops with colorful displays in the windows. I stopped briefly at a bookstore because I loved the smell of books and the quiet atmosphere inside. I didn't plan to buy anything, but I ended up buying a small notebook because I liked the design. It had a simple brown cover and clean white pages. I thought it would be perfect for writing new podcast ideas. I continued walking and eventually found a small sandwich shop. I wasn't very hungry, but I wanted something light, so I went inside and ordered a grilled vegetable sandwich. While I waited, I checked my phone again, replied to a couple more messages, and looked at my calendar for the rest of the week. When my sandwich was ready, I found a seat outside and ate slowly while watching people pass by. After lunch, I headed back home. The bus ride was quiet, and I enjoyed looking out the window, letting my mind wander. When I arrived home, I took off my shoes, changed into more comfortable clothes, and sat on the couch for a moment. I felt a little tired, so I closed my eyes and rested for about 10 minutes. But I didn't fall asleep. I just needed a small break. A few minutes later, I got up and decided to do some light cleaning. I vacuumed the living room, folded some clothes, and organized my desk. While I cleaned, I listened to a playlist of soft piano music. I find cleaning very meditative when I'm in the right mood. It helps me think clearly. After cleaning, I sat at my desk and worked on some podcast ideas. I wrote down possible topics, title ideas, and questions that listeners might find useful. I also re-listened to a few older episodes to think about what I could improve. I always want daily English talk to feel friendly, simple, and useful for learners. I want my listeners to feel like they're talking to a friend who's helping them grow. As I worked, I realized I hadn't drunk enough water, so I got up, walked to the kitchen, and poured myself a big glass. While I drank, I looked out the window. The sky was starting to turn orange, and the sunlight reflected beautifully off the buildings. I love this time of day. Calm, golden, warm. It always inspires me. The sky was starting to turn orange, and the sunlight reflected beautifully off the buildings. I love this time of day. Calm, golden, warm. It always inspires me. I stood there for another minute, just enjoying the soft light before I returned to my desk and continued writing. As I wrote, I thought about how important it is for learners to hear natural, past tense examples. Real stories, real moments, simple details. These things help new vocabulary stick in your mind without forcing yourself to memorize long lists. So while I worked, I decided I wanted today's podcast to be extra helpful, full of easy-to-understand examples and natural storytelling. After finishing a few notes, I closed my notebook and stretched my arms. I realized I'd been sitting for too long, so I stood up and walked around the room for a minute. Then I walked to the kitchen again and checked what I had for dinner. I wasn't sure what I wanted to cook, but I knew I didn't want anything too heavy. I opened the fridge and looked inside. Some vegetables, a bit of rice from yesterday, a few eggs, and some leftover chicken. I thought about it for a moment and decided to make a simple stir-fry. It's quick, healthy, and easy to clean up afterward. So I washed the vegetables, bell peppers, carrots, and broccoli, cut them into small pieces, and heated a pan on the stove. I added a little oil, waited for it to warm up, and then tossed everything inside. The vegetables sizzled loudly, and I love that sound. It always makes me feel like I'm creating something comforting. I added some salt, garlic, and a little soy sauce. The smell filled the kitchen, warm and delicious. While the vegetables cooked, I cut the leftover chicken into small strips and added them to the pan. I stirred everything together until it looked ready. When it was done, I turned off the stove, scooped the stir-fry into a bowl, and sat down at the table. While I ate dinner, I watched a short video about storytelling techniques. Not for entertainment, but because I wanted to improve the way I explain English concepts to listeners. I always want daily English talk to feel clear, helpful, and comfortable. And part of that is improving how I teach. After dinner, I cleaned the dishes, wiped the table, and put everything away. Then I returned to the living room and sat on the couch with my laptop. I planned to watch only a short video, but you know how it is. Sometimes short videos become longer than you expect. I watched a few travel videos, a couple of relaxing nature clips, and then a documentary about creativity. While I watched, I felt the tension slowly leave my body. It was one of those evenings that feels peaceful and simple. Eventually, I closed my laptop and looked around the room. The candles I had lit earlier were still glowing softly. I walked over, blew them out, and opened a window to let in some cool evening air. The city sounded calmer than earlier. Fewer cars, fewer people, just a gentle quiet. I liked it. I sat back down and took out my notebook again, the same one I bought at the bookstore. I wanted to finish outlining the episode for you. I wrote more examples, more stories, more natural phrases. And now I want to share those extra insights inside our story today, because the whole purpose of this episode is to make the past tense feel friendly and simple. So let's continue talking about your day in the past. By now, you've heard many examples. Woke up, made breakfast, went outside, met a friend, walked through the park, had a meeting, cooked dinner. These are all actions we describe in the simple past. And the more you hear them, the more you feel how they work. But one thing students often ask me is, should I add details or keep it simple? And the answer is, add details when you can, because they help create a real conversation. For example, instead of saying, I watched a movie, you can say, I watched a movie last night. It was about a group of travelers exploring an old city. I enjoyed the music and the atmosphere. See? Not complicated, just natural. After I finished my notes, I got up and walked to the bathroom. I washed my face, brushed my teeth, and put on some comfortable clothes for the rest of the evening. Then I filled a glass of water and sat down again, this time at my small reading chair. It's a cozy corner near the window with a soft blanket and a little lamp. I love reading there when the weather is quiet and the room feels calm. I picked up the book I had started earlier that week. It wasn't a heavy book, more like a simple, relaxing story about someone traveling across the country. I read a few chapters and enjoyed every page. But as I read, I noticed I was getting more and more sleepy. My eyes felt heavy, and I kept rereading the same sentences. So I marked the page, closed the book, and placed it on the small table next to the chair. I stood up and stretched again. Then I grabbed my phone to check messages one last time before bed. A couple of friends had texted me, asking how my day was. I replied quickly, telling them I had a productive day and that I was working on a new podcast episode. After that, I put my phone on silent mode and placed it across the room. I try not to sleep with the phone next to my bed, because I sleep better when it's far away. Before going to bed, I sat down for a moment and thought about the whole day. All the little moments, the small actions, the simple routines. And that's when I realized something important. Even the most ordinary day is full of things you can describe in English. Every minute is a small sentence you can practice. I sat down, I stood up, I opened the window, I cooked dinner, I watched a video, I cleaned the table, I wrote a note. These might feel simple, but they are powerful building blocks of communication. I turned off the lights, went to my bedroom, and crawled under the blanket. The sheets felt cool and soft. I closed my eyes and let my mind drift. Before I fell asleep, I thought about the episode I wanted to share with you, this one, and about how many learners struggle with the past tense for no real reason. It's not because it's too hard. It's because they don't get enough natural input, enough examples, enough comfortable practice. So let's use the rest of this episode to go deeper. I want to show you even more examples of talking about your day, so that by the end, you'll feel confident telling your own stories. Let's imagine another day. Not too different from the first, but with a few variations so you can hear new vocabulary and new past tense structures. Imagine that yesterday you woke up earlier than usual because you had something important to do. Maybe you had an appointment, or maybe you planned a trip. So the day started like this. Yesterday, I woke up around 6 because I had an early appointment. I didn't want to rush, so I got ready slowly. I took a warm shower, dried my hair, and chose the clothes I wanted to wear. After that, I prepared a quick breakfast, just a banana and some yogurt, because I didn't have much time. Here again, we're practicing simple past verbs. Woke up, had, got ready, took, dried, chose, prepared. All of these verbs describe completed actions. If you hear them 10, 20, 30 times, they start to feel automatic. So let's continue this imaginary day. After breakfast, you left the house. Maybe you walked to the train station. You could say, I walked to the train station because it was a beautiful morning. The air felt cool, and the sun was rising slowly. I bought a ticket, waited on the platform, and watched the train arrive. Again, simple actions, simple past. When you got on the train, you found a seat and sat down. You might say, I sat by the window and listened to some music. I watched the buildings pass by. The train moved smoothly, and I enjoyed the peaceful ride. See? Nothing complicated, just real life. Now imagine that you reached your destination. Maybe you visited someone, or maybe you went to a doctor, or maybe you had a job interview. You can fill in any details you want. The important thing is using the past tense naturally. For example, I arrived at the office and checked in at the reception. I waited for a few minutes, and then a woman called my name. She led me to a small room where we talked for about 30 minutes. After that, maybe you went to a cafe. You could say, I stopped at a cafe afterward because I wanted to relax. I ordered a cappuccino and a small cookie. I sat near the window again. I love window seats, and watched people walking outside. Simple, natural, real. Let's continue adding more examples. After the cafe, maybe you went shopping. You could say, I visited a few shops because I needed some new clothes. I tried on a couple of shirts, but I didn't buy anything. Nothing fit the way I wanted. Then I walked to a bookstore and looked at a few novels. I almost bought one, but I decided to think about it first. Then maybe you met someone. You might say, in the afternoon, I met a friend I hadn't seen in a long time. We talked about our lives, our plans, and the things we wanted to accomplish this year. We walked through the park, sat on a bench, and enjoyed the weather. Again, simple past everywhere. Met, talked, walked, sat, enjoyed. Later you went home. I took the bus home because I was tired after walking so much. When I got home, I changed into comfortable clothes and lay down for a few minutes. Then I cooked dinner, pasta with vegetables, and watched an episode of my favorite show. Finally, the evening. At night, I cleaned the kitchen, took a shower, and prepared my things for the next day. Before going to bed, I read a few pages of a book. Then I turned off the lights and fell asleep quickly. Do you notice something? None of these sentences are difficult, no, they're all extremely normal, everyday actions. And yet, when you put them in the past tense and practice them repeatedly, you gain real confidence. The kind that makes conversations easy. Now, let's return to my story, because I want to finish describing my original day. When I finally got into bed and closed my eyes, I felt grateful. It had been a long day, but a good one. And I realized something else. Describing your day in English is not just about grammar. It's about connection. It's about sharing your life with others. When someone asks you, what did you do yesterday? They're not asking for perfection. They're asking for a little window into your world. And that's why telling your story, even a simple one, can create a real moment of communication. So, before I fell asleep, I thought about what I wanted to tell you today. I wanted to tell you that learning English doesn't need to feel like studying. It can feel like living, like observing your own day and turning it into language. Every small action can become a sentence. Every sentence becomes practice. Every moment becomes progress. I drifted off slowly, thinking about today's episode, and I slept deeply and peacefully. And now, here we are, At the end of our long journey through a full day in the past, you've heard dozens, maybe hundreds, of past tense verbs in natural context. You've heard long storytelling, short examples, simple actions, detailed descriptions, and realistic conversations. All of this helps your brain absorb the language naturally. But before we end today's episode, I want to encourage you to do something powerful. Try telling your own story. It doesn't need to be long, and it doesn't need to be perfect. Just choose a day, yesterday, last weekend, or even this morning, and describe it using the past tense. Say it out loud or write it down. The more you do this, the faster you improve. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Daily English Talk. I release episodes to help you learn English in a way that feels real, friendly, and natural. Thank you for spending this time with me. I'm glad you were here, and I'm proud of you for listening, practicing, and growing. You're doing amazing, and I'm always here to help.